Two powerful cyclones are now churning across the Pacific, putting island communities on alert and raising concerns for parts of Australia and New Zealand in the days ahead. Severe Tropical Cyclone Maila and Tropical Cyclone Vaianu have both reached Category 3 strength, bringing heavy rain, strong winds, and rough seas across a wide stretch of the region. Maila is having the biggest impact, with warnings in place for the Solomon Islands and Papua New Guinea. Authorities say conditions are dangerous, especially for coastal and low-lying communities. The Solomon Islands Meteorological Service has warned of gale-force winds, very rough seas, and widespread heavy rain and thunderstorms, particularly in Western Province. A red alert is in place for Western, Choiseul, and Isabel provinces, while several other areas remain under orange alert. Officials say the weather could trigger landslides and flooding, especially near rivers, streams, and hillsides. In Papua New Guinea, the National Weather Service has issued warnings for Milne Bay Province, including island communities such as Woodlark, Misima, and Rossel. Residents are being told to stay away from the sea and move to higher ground as storm surge, flooding, and strong winds threaten the area. Meanwhile, Cyclone Vaianu is sitting near Fiji, where it has already brought strong winds and heavy rain. A nationwide heavy rain warning is in force, with flash flood warnings for Viti Levu and alerts across the rest of the country. Schools in Fiji remain closed as authorities urge people to stay safe and avoid flooded areas. Vaianu is not expected to make landfall in Fiji, but forecasters say it could intensify further before moving south. Fiji's National Weather Forecasting Center in Nadi reported on Tuesday that a flash flood warning remains in force for the main island, Viti Levu, and a flash flood alert is still in force for the rest of the country. Severe Tropical Cyclone Vaianu, Category 3, was located near 16.8 south, 174.0 east, or about 380 kilometers west of Yasawa-i-Rara, and 380 kilometers west-northwest of Nadi at 3 a.m. today. TC Vaianu is currently moving southeast at about 10 kilometers per hour and is expected to lie about 280 kilometers southwest of Nadi or 250 kilometers west-southwest of Kadavu at 3 a.m. tomorrow. Aotearoa is watching the system closely. Met Service says Vaianu could approach the country later this week. Vaianu could keep dropping south and come close to us for the weekend. Heather Keats, head of weather news at Met Service, told Stuff. It's likely from late Friday or Saturday we will start to see some impacts. Even before Vaianu arrives, parts of New Zealand are already dealing with severe weather. A subtropical low is bringing heavy rain and strong winds, with warnings in place for Northland and watches across several regions. Authorities warn of flooding, slips, and dangerous driving conditions. Australia is also preparing for possible impacts from Cyclone Maila. The Bureau of Meteorology says the system is likely to track towards far north Queensland. With increasing confidence, it could cross Cape York Peninsula around Sunday. The cyclone could strengthen further before landfall. At the moment, it is producing winds of up to 150 kilometers per hour, with stronger gusts. If it reaches the Queensland coast, heavy rain and strong winds are expected to spread inland before the system weakens. For now, authorities across the Pacific are urging people to stay updated with forecasts, follow safety advice, and prepare for rapidly changing conditions as both cyclones continue to move. Dozens of roads and crossings are inaccessible in Fiji's western division due to heavy rainfall caused by severe tropical cyclone Vaianu. Authorities are advising people to avoid flooded areas and take necessary precautions. Videos shared by the Fiji Meteorological Service, sent by the public, showing real-time weather updates of the impacts of Vaianu show rain and strong winds affecting different parts of the country. A forecasting officer said on Tuesday morning the wind is expected to pick up over most places on Tuesday. Forecasting officer Shivneel Prasad said some marine areas can expect wind up to 40 knots and gusts of up to 50 knots, or about 93 kilometers an hour, which means hazardous conditions at sea. For land, basically we expect the northerly winds to prevail over the Fiji group. This will bring about occasional periods of rain and heavy falls as well. He said the Met Service had received reports of flash flooding. Prasad said Vaianu is expected to stay on its projected southeast path, and weather conditions will continue to affect Fiji on Wednesday, but should start to ease. Come tomorrow morning, we'll start to see a trend of easing of the winds over the Fiji group. And with regards to the rain, because there's an extension of this system up to the north, the rain will start to ease off by end of tomorrow. A heavy rain warning remains in place for the whole Fiji group. Schools and universities are closed until further notice. The National Disaster Risk Management Office, NDRMO, has advised those living in low-lying and flood-prone areas to move to evacuation centers. Do not attempt to cross flooded roads, rivers, or crossings under any circumstances. The country's acting permanent secretary for disaster management, Michele Kama, said at a news conference on Monday. The Water Authority of Fiji is advising people to store water in advance, as the impacts of Vaianu could affect water production and supply. This could lead to low water pressure or temporary supply interruptions in some areas. Poor road conditions may also delay water cartage services to affected communities, it said. Fiji's Maritime Safety Authority, MSAF, has issued a notice advising all passenger and cargo transport operations in the Western Division to cease effective 9 a.m. on Tuesday local time. Shipmasters are permitted to reposition vessels for safety purposes without the need for standard clearances, provided that no passengers or cargo are on board, the notice said. It urged all maritime operators and seafarers to remain vigilant and prioritize safety at all times. Multiple flights into and out of Nadi were canceled on Tuesday due to the adverse weather connected to Cyclone Vaianu. Fiji Airports said all Fiji Link domestic flights were canceled, as were a number of international flights. Meanwhile, people in Tauranga feeling unsafe when heavy rain bears down on the city are being urged to evacuate. The Bay of Plenty west of Whakatane is now under an orange heavy rain warning, with up to 140 millimeters forecast from midnight. Tauranga City Council has closed a number of tracks and parks in preparation. It said there was an increased risk of both new landslides and more damage at old ones after earlier severe weather. If you learn or suspect that a landslide is occurring or is about to occur in your area, evacuate immediately if it is safe to do so, the council said. Seek higher ground outside the path of the landslide. Getting out of the path of a landslide or debris flow path is your best protection, it added. If you are feeling unsafe in your property, please self-evacuate to family or friends. Take animals and any medication you may need. Elsewhere, heavy rain continued to batter Northland's east coast, with the Kāeo River threatening to flood across State Highway 10 north of the Bay of Islands. High tide passed at 11 a.m. The wettest areas so far have been Kerikeri, Wakapara, and Whangaroa, which have each recorded around 80 millimeters of rain in the past 24 hours. Met Service earlier warned up to 120 millimeters could fall, with peak rates up to 40 millimeters an hour. In Punaruku, the area battered by the January storm, just over 50 millimeters had fallen. A farm dam burst in the heavy rain, blocking a far north road with mud and debris. The Far North District Council said the dam rupture on Taupo Bay Road, near the intersection with State Highway 10, was the most dramatic of today's weather-related incidents. Work is continuing to clear the road. 5 other roads around the district, Orowaiti Road, Trig Road, Waikare Road, Waimate North Road, and Waiotamarama Gorge Road, were closed due to flooding, a fallen tree, and a slip. Rain is now easing after up to 140 millimeters fell in the past 24 hours, with the wettest area just west of Kerikeri, according to regional council figures. NZTA Whakakotahi said all Northland highways remain open, but flooding was making driving hazardous at some locations. The transport agency said State Highway 15 at Tapua Road is flooded but passable with care, while surface flooding is present on State Highway 10 near Manganui and Kāeo. Traffic management is in place on State Highway 10 in Waipapa, also due to flooding. Civil Defense was urging motorists to take extreme care as a subtropical low made its way south. Northland Civil Defense earlier said roads and river levels were mostly stable, but there was a lot of surface water on roads and paddocks, especially in the east, and the ground was still saturated from previous downpours. Met Service cautioned of surface flooding, slips, and difficult driving conditions. Northland's orange heavy rain warning has been downgraded to a heavy rain watch until 6 p.m. Tuesday, with Met Service saying the storm was tracking south. A strong wind watch remained in place for Northland until 5 p.m. Much of the rest of the upper North Island remained under a heavy rain watch, including Auckland, Waikato, Coromandel, and the eastern Bay of Plenty. Forecasters expected the bad weather to reach the northern South Island by Wednesday evening. Heavy rain watches for late Tuesday were in place in parts of the north of the island. Meanwhile, a tropical cyclone could potentially head towards New Zealand within the next week. 2 tropical cyclones were hovering over the South Pacific, Maila in the Solomon Sea and Vaianu to the east of Vanuatu. Met Service forecaster Luis Fernando said the Category 2 Cyclone Vaianu looked like it would intensify to a Category 3. Some of the models are indicating that perhaps towards the weekend, the remnants at least of the cyclone could affect parts of the North Island. Northland experienced heavy rains and flooding at the end of March, and some parts are still recovering from the deluge. The government of the Solomon Islands has declared a national state of emergency as Tropical Cyclone Maila undergoes rapid intensification in the Solomon Sea. What began as a tropical disturbance has evolved into a monstrous Category 4 equivalent system, threatening to redraw the coastlines of the archipelago with a life-threatening storm surge and catastrophic wind speeds. As of the latest update from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, JTWC, and the Solomon Islands Meteorological Service, SIMS, the eye of Cyclone Maila is situated approximately 480 kilometers west-northwest of Honiara. Maximum sustained winds 215 kilometers per hour, 116 knots, with gusts peaking at 260 kilometers per hour. Central pressure 935 hectopascals and falling. The system is moving at a dangerously slow pace of 6 kilometers per hour toward the south-southwest. Meteorologists warn that the slow forward motion is the most sinister aspect of Maila. A slow-moving cyclone allows the wind to pile up the ocean surface for a longer duration, resulting in a much higher and more destructive storm surge than a fast-moving storm of the same intensity. The Solomon Islands, an archipelago of nearly 1,000 islands, is uniquely vulnerable to rising sea levels. The National Disaster Management Office, NDMO, has issued a red alert for all coastal provinces, specifically Guadalcanal, Central, and Western provinces. Total inundation is feared for smaller islands where the highest point of land is less than 3 meters above sea level. We are looking at a wall of water that could penetrate up to 500 meters inland in some areas, stated a senior official from the NDMO. This is no longer just about wind-damaged roofs. This is about the permanent loss of coastal infrastructure and the immediate threat to life from drowning and debris. The capital city, Honiara, is already experiencing the outer bands of Maila. The Solomon Islands Electricity Authority, SIEA, has implemented rolling blackouts to protect the grid from falling trees and power lines. Water treatment plants in the Lunga River catchment are at risk of being overwhelmed by silt and debris. Henderson International Airport has officially suspended all domestic and international flights. The main wharf in Honiara is closed, halting vital inter-island shipping, the lifeline of the nation's economy. Reports are surfacing of towers being toppled in the western province, leaving remote communities in radio silence, just as the worst of the storm approaches. Evacuation centers in schools and churches are currently overflowing. Over 45,000 people are estimated to be in the direct path of the most severe surge zones. The biggest fear for humanitarian agencies like the IFRC, International Federation of Red Cross, is the fate of the outer islands. With communications down and sea travel impossible, there is no way to confirm if residents in the most remote areas have reached higher ground. Saltwater intrusion is our long-term enemy here, says an IFRC representative. The surge will poison the taro patches and groundwater wells. Even after the winds die down, the threat of famine and thirst will remain for months. The Australian Bureau of Meteorology, BOM, and the Fiji Meteorological Service are providing satellite reconnaissance and technical data to support local forecasters. Australia and New Zealand, both nations have placed their disaster relief naval vessels on high alert, ready to deploy the moment the all clear is given. GDACS, Global Disaster Alert and Coordination System, has issued a red alert, predicting a high humanitarian impact based on the storm's intensity and the vulnerability of the local population. The Solomon Islands government has issued the following mandatory directives. All residents in coastal red zones must move to designated inland shelters immediately. Do not wait for the rain to start. Boil all drinking water. The storm surge and flooding will likely contaminate town water supplies with seawater and sewage. Keep battery-powered radios on at all times. Local FM stations and AM shortwave frequencies are the only reliable sources of information during the peak of the storm. Cyclone Maila is expected to maintain its Category 4 status as it brushes past the Solomon Islands before tracking toward the Coral Sea and the northern coast of Queensland, Australia. Climate scientists note that the extreme intensity of Maila is consistent with the warming sea surface temperatures in the Pacific, which provide high-octane fuel for such systems.